to this Menopause Roundtable event hosted by Boden Group in conjunction with the LGBT plus in FM committee. What we're here to do is just to discuss a range of topics surrounding menopause, being a person in FM, and also, you know, how it affects minority groups and stigmas around menopause, and maybe had a bit of a discussion about what more could be done in the workplace to help those going through menopause. So first of all, just at a very base level, why do we think talking about menopause is important in the workplace?
I think it's the first step forward, really, isn't it? You know, we've had generations and generations of people of, it's been brushed under the carpet and it's been kept quiet and it's that taboo, never been spoken about. And the only way to get it out there and to get people, understanding it and dealing with it and helping people that are going through it is to talk about it, to get it out there in the open. So this is, a good first step.
Yeah. And it's also making the education available to people. A lot of people don't know about menopause, and that could be women and women and women that are actually going through the symptoms and they don't know they're going through menopause or they're perimenopause. And I think it's important to have it in the workplaces that we can all help and get that material out there that is available to everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree. It affects 100% of people in the workforce. So yes, women typically are the ones that go through it, but then you've got non-binary, you've got trans, men who go through prostate cancer as well will have menopausal symptoms too. And it's not just those people that are coming into work with these symptoms. It's their line managers, their colleagues, their partners that they wake up to in the morning that have also had a bad night's sleep because someone's up 3 times a night having a wee or hot flushes. So that person's also coming into work as a partner. That's my situation. Is I have a wife who's just turned 50. She's menopausal, and again, how it affects. Yes, I mean she's going through hell and is on HRT, etc. now. But in terms of her mood and her anxiety, depression, that's obviously has a knock-on effect to me, and I bring that into my workplace too. So it does affect everyone.
Yeah, totally agree. Some of the statistics I sort of looked at when I was doing a bit of research was. Obviously it's not talked about anywhere or emphasised anywhere nearly enough what it should do. There's up to 5 million women aged 15 to 65 in employment in the UK. It's over half of the UK labour force. And women of menopausal age are the fastest growing group in the workforce at the moment, which I found really interesting. And I think it just typifies why we need to be talking about it more and supporting everybody going through it. Majority of people feel like they need further advice and support, and I've read that up to 1 in 4 have such bad symptoms that they think about giving up work.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah, I've also heard situations where I live locally. A poor lady in her 50s took her own life, and it was because of the menopause and how badly she was suffering. So we did a webinar at work, and we only had 50 spaces. Within the first 20 minutes, every single space went. And it wasn't just women, it was men. I had an employer guy contact me and he said, I've got a lot of female friends who are going through this, but I don't know about it. So I'm being really honest, I don't know about it. I don't know what to say when we have discussions about it because I don't know. And it was a really mixed, it wasn't just women. So it shows that people do want to know about the menopause, and that isn't out there, and people just want to know, want to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a similar thing as well at ISS in terms of that sort of awareness piece. And this started, I mean, for me, I brought the project into the business because, again, of what I was living with at home. And then I walk into the office and I'm like surrounded by, a very mixed bag of people here, but they would all be affected by it too. So we did a big thing about actually using the word menopause in the office. And to begin with, there was a lot of very blushed faces of the menopause. But now I can walk into the canteen at lunchtime, into the restaurant, and people will be openly having a conversation about their own symptoms, their wife's symptoms. I get dragged in to have a conversation about their wife's symptoms. It's really nice that, again, for us as a business, it doesn't feel as taboo anymore. And that didn't actually take as much effort as I thought it would. I thought it would be quite a big sort of uphill battle, but same thing, making sure that message has gone from people who are in the office to people who are on site. And I went and did a tour around one of the sites who had been through this training as well. And there was a big group of guys there, and I said, how did you get on with your menopause training? And they went, well, we're all menopausal now. very funny. Excellent. But then very quickly that turned into actually, I could see that because I live at home with someone who is menopausal, and actually I understand that, and I didn't understand that before, and I thought we were going to get divorced, and I thought this. So, again, knowing this and being able to sympathise with, there's over 60 symptoms of the menopause, and anyone, will go through different waves of that. Some will have it, easy, some it will change over time. So again, it's just, again, that empathy around being able to, one, if you're going through it, to be able to actually say, I'm struggling and this is why, but equally the person that you're giving that message to doesn't suddenly go, the menopause, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just asking you in terms of working in the FM sector, which is traditionally, a male dominated, very male dominated sector, and obviously, it is changing, it's evolving, but it's baby steps and it is taking some time. How have you found it, Sam, being a female in a male dominated sector?
I think, I'm very lucky working for a company like Pareto, which, is very inclusive, very diverse, very forward thinking, in that they would always embrace, anything that's brought to the table. So they're always really up for sort of like a new initiative with something like that. But as you quite rightly say, in a traditionally male dominated industry, it is probably one of those things that is one of the last things that people will talk about. Those males probably haven't even discussed it with their own wives. They certainly probably wouldn't have discussed it with their mothers. So I think education is absolutely 100% the way forward. Get people educated, get the information out there so that they can take it in, and some will probably embrace it wholeheartedly and be happy to chat about it. Others would probably just want to take the information away because, it's a real generational thing. I think, there are generations that still don't probably want to, lay it all on the table and really openly chat about it. So as long as you're giving people the information and they can take that away if they want to, that's a really good first step, I think, out into the industry. And with a male dominated industry, I think, that's definitely a way forward. 100%.
Great. And what about yourself, Kat?
I think there's a few things in terms of, again, the first meeting I presented at, when I said the word menopause, everyone did very much blush, and it was all guys in the room, apart from there was one woman in there too, and that sort of became quite normal actually. And again, it was started, we have like a safety moment at the beginning of a meeting, and actually more and more people were asking me for content to be able to discuss the menopause at the beginning of a meeting. So I think there's a few things for us. We had a menopause policy we developed pretty quickly, looking at best practice that was out within FM and out, mostly outside of FM. There wasn't a lot within the FM industry, but we very quickly chose to change our policy. So it didn't say her, she, women. It was very much people, Absolutely. Employees and placemakers. Again, because of that piece that, there will be non-binary people who, may not be out in the business, trans as well, that, they will be going through that. But again, if they come out to their line manager and say, well, I'm actually going through the menopause, but they identify as a man, then again, they've given a piece of information that necessarily they might not want to give. So we've looked at, again, about provisions as well. So we're looking at our toilet facilities as well. So we're going to start putting out something we're calling a menopause box. So it's so sort of bits and pieces that, again, if you've come into the office, you've either had a hot flush on the train, you're flooded, whatever it is, that you can very easily have access to bits and pieces that you need. A bit of hairspray is usually what I need, just so that, again, you're back to, right, okay, confident again. You haven't come into work and you're like, oh God, I've got a big meeting today and I'm a mess. But not just having that in the female toilets, it's having in the gender neutral toilets and the men's toilets as well. So that is accessible to anyone.
Great idea.
Where Wes is, we've got gender neutral toilets. So I actually did say, because we're talking about the menopause, I'm the vice chair of our Affinity Network, which is of ages. So we've done the campaign about the menopause last year. Although some people sort of like said, are you going in a bit too hard? And it was like, well, what should we? Because again, it's that taboo, isn't it? I think people are embarrassed about talking about the menopause.
What's too hard?
I know.
We all go through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and that brought people coming to talk to me and said, look, I've had a situation. I'm embarrassed to come into work. When I have a period, I don't know when I'm going to have a period. I'm extremely heavy. I could leak from my clothes. I just thought, you've got that going on, and life is hard enough as it is, without thinking, I don't know when I'm going to have a period. This might happen, that might happen. And all the anxiety and the stresses that come out with that I said as well that, you know, we need to be putting like, even like sanitary wear in the toilets, because you might have a visitor coming along, exactly that sort of thing might happen. And like the old, you know, you used to have the money and you put the money in the boxes to get your tampons.
Yeah.
That's been now removed. And so they have sort of these sanitary wear in the toilets. But there was, do we want to put them in the toilets? And it was like, well, yeah, really. Yeah.
It's a really, really good point. It's I think it's absolutely essential, and I think a lot more businesses are getting better and more progressive, but I think there's a long way to go yet in terms of getting there. I think it is a journey that the workplaces are going through, and obviously it's not about, you know, work from home, you know, that's a challenge in itself, because that can, even though you've got access to all of everything that you need at home, the elements of anxiety, depression, I think potentially could be, you know, being someone who primarily works from home quite a lot of the time, you can see if you're starting to get into that mindset where you have got the anxiety and potentially sort of elements of depression, it could be quite alienating to be purely home based. So I was thinking last night, I don't know what the answer is. I wonder if there's any initiatives that can be implemented to sort of help that, maybe wellbeing support or something else for people who are primarily home based, going through the menopause and going through those particular symptoms of it, because it seems to be, from speaking to my friends, that the anxiety element is very, very key.
Yeah, that's something that we've looked at with our mental health first aiders as well. So again, if someone, you know, an employee came up to you as a mental health first aider and said, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, you know, that automatically, as we've, you know, previously said, is, oh, okay, sounds like, and you know, antidepressants are required there. So we could be signposting people in completely the wrong direction. Whereas actually, if you again listen to the wider picture of, you know, what else is happening, yes, it's a triage point, and we're not training counsellors, but again, it allows them to have that idea that actually, maybe I don't need to be signing, maybe I need to be signposting them to the GP. But you're right, Louise, in terms of that sort of that touch point, again, it even allows you, you know, if you are in an office environment, to be able to have, you know, a cup of coffee with someone, just saying, oh, look, I'm really struggling at the minute. You don't have that access at home. So it can be very isolating.
Yeah, no, it's just something I've been thinking of recently, again, because I've got, you know, friends who work from home and sort of starting to go through it, and and it's not something you want to keep speaking to your, you know, your partner or your husband or your wife back, because they're like, oh, I'm getting it all the time. You want someone, like a work wife or a work husband, or just someone you can vent to a bit. I think some other things that came up in my research as well was the whole perception of weakness of being a female, or non-binary, you know. So if you've gone through trying to already work really, really hard to get where you've got to, the whole anxiety piece, depression piece is a perceived as a sign of weakness, and you'll be frowned upon by superiors or your line manager or your MD, and it's coming back to the piece of, you know, some, like you were touching on, Kat, some of the symptoms in terms of the severe fatigue and just the overall tiredness and the brain fog.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I've heard exactly that. We've had a where we were perhaps sort of like asked not to really play on brain fog, not to play on forgetfulness, because you may have a situation where somebody looks at that and say, well, do we really want to put them in that position, because they are going to suffer with that, which seems like, well, this is just a symptom that we go through this, we're all going through this, you know. Would that be used against somebody? Would they really think I can't put someone in that position when it is a symptom? But unfortunately, people do think that.
It's about supporting people, though, isn't it? Because again, if people have brain fog, for example, there's someone who I work with here who is awful with names, and she forever has to read the names on the Teams calls. But if she's in a room with someone, then she'll write their name down on a post-it note on it, you know, in front of her, so that she doesn't get herself in that position where she goes blank. Who is that person? She's got her own, you know, her own way of coping with that. Exactly that. So I think that's for everything. For each one of those symptoms, you should be able to go to someone in your business, your line manager, and say, these are the 5 things that I'm struggling with, and this is what I need. It might be a different uniform, it might be a desk fan, it might be don't ring me before 10 o'clock in the morning, which is someone in my team. There's no point if your brain's not switched on before 10 a.m. don't book a meeting for 9 a.m. So everyone should be allowed that alteration.
The uniforms are really, really good point to bring up as well, in terms of frontline people working in FM who were going through it. I read something this week about it's been in the press about how I think it's government are lobbying, and also it was employment lawyers were talking about how it should be sanctioned a lot heavier if employers won't be flexible in terms of uniforms, and either giving people flexible sizes depending on how they're feeling, or replacement uniforms, if they're going through the hot flushes and all of that on their commute or during their day-to-day work, that they should be able to access multiple sort of parts of the uniform if they need to change it on a day-to-day basis. I thought that was a really interesting and valid piece. Again, it's the connotation of shame, isn't it, that comes with it. If you're sort of absolutely drenched in a uniform by 9-10 o'clock and you having to stand there and try and do your job to the best of your ability, it's just all of it. It's part of the education, really, isn't it?
I mean, that's bad enough for me. I suffer from sweating anyway, and I've gone into meetings and I've sat down and I've become aware then my legs are becoming really sweaty, and as the more I'm thinking about it, the worse it gets, until I'm focused on this chair. Once I get up, it's going to look like I've wet myself, and anyone could be talking to me, and about that time I've totally switched off. Where I want them to go, look, I'm getting really hot. Will you excuse me? I've just got to go out. But I'm just focusing on I'm just sweating. It's everywhere. So I really do feel for people that they've got having to wear uniforms and they're stuck in these uniforms and they can't do anything because obviously they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think also as well, it's sort of going across the board, and as Kat said earlier, the symptoms, there's over 60 different symptoms, and we can't sort of pigeonhole or label the fact that it's like, right, so you're menopausal, so that means hot flushes, brain fog, and it's you can't make a list. Nobody goes around with a label that says I am suffering from and everybody's so different. I think that's one of the main things as well, that people need to understand, that it's a really wide open thing. So yes, it's fantastic. Companies can provide extra uniform and provide bits and pieces at work that would help, and this, that and the other, but also that understanding that I may be menopausal, but maybe I don't suffer from hot flushes. So people walking around behind me fanning me with bits of paper, I don't need that, but that's fine. So yeah, just people understanding that it's such a wide-ranging thing, and of course the effects can start for some people so much earlier, for some people so much later. It's not like, right, well, you're 50 now, so off we go. And all that sort of thing. Just really, as you said, Louise, just expanding everyone's knowledge, just so that it's a more accepted thing across the board, and it's not like somebody sitting in a meeting suddenly melting and going purple and everybody going, all right, there we go, hot flush, all right, love. It's not cut and dried, is it?
No.
And
what was interesting? So go on.
It's really do. We just need to get that information needs to be accessible and get and out there, because you might have somebody that's their younger age, in their 20s, that's going through the menopause. It's not necessarily older women. I think you just got to be mindful, haven't you, that you really don't know what someone's going health wise. You just don't.
Absolutely. And if people have been through either ovarian or cervical cancer, and have had to have very, very large doses of radiotherapy that have caused them to go into premature menopause, that's very common, and that can be in 20s or 30s as well. What I thought was quite interesting as well was from an employment lawyer, was that employment tribunals citing menopause have increased by 44% year on year. I was like, wow, that's significant. And I think what that individual was saying is, this needs to change. This needs to change. There needs to be an improvement in workplace policy from an HR perspective, from a training perspective, because it's an L&D need as well. It's training managers, it's training all employees to be just a bit more aware of it. So obviously, you know, a key part of it, of training, is obviously around minority groups and supporting everybody in the workplace. So sort of moving on to sort of the I guess the LGBT plus perspective, Kat, what would you say?
I think again, it's a big umbrella. Obviously, LGBTQIA plus. There's a lot of us in that community, all experiencing it from a very different viewpoint. I think from my point of view, lack of education, even as a woman, the fact that I knew nothing about the menopause at all until 18 months ago. And again, if I'd been better educated, maybe I could have helped my wife a lot earlier, because she was struggling with her mental health for a very long time, 4+ years. She always says it always felt like sort of the colour was just draining out of life. She just felt she was living in black and white. So again, how hard is that, as a message, as a partner? How do you support someone who, I can't make her better? Obviously, I can support as best I can. I think again, when I speak to other people in the LGBT community, it's education. Yes, it's, again, I think, as Sam was saying, we're not all one size fits all. So again, there'll be different people experiencing from a different point of view. Non-binary, trans, we've mentioned before. So yeah, there's a big piece there, and I think there is, again, saying about non-binary earlier, and the trans element is not putting people in difficult positions, because again, so something that we've done at ISS, instead of launching a menopause cafe, I didn't like the connotations of that. Just looked like it was going to be women. What guy is going to go, oh, I'm going to go and join the menopause cafe? They'll be like, really? So we've called it the HRT rooms. So basically, it's anything to do with HRT. So that can be obviously menopause. It can be prostate cancer because it's hormones. It could be IVF. It could be any normal menstrual cycles. I say normal menstrual cycles. I don't know if anyone has a normal menstrual cycle, but again, so it allows us to, on that monthly basis, is to be able to talk anything to do with hormones that are just cause absolute havoc over everyone's bodies, multiple times of their lives. So that's how we've conquered it, again, to make it more inclusive for everyone, including the LGBT community.
Right. No, I think the inclusivity piece is absolutely key for everybody, including this sort of the interraciality element as well, and that minority groups on average go through menopause 2 years earlier than white people.
There's myths as well, Louise, as well. That's something that I focus on, is, again, I heard something quite early on when I was doing my research about this a couple of years ago, is that black skin is different and they can't use gels. Black women can't use gels because they don't absorb into the skin. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So again, it's these myths that, again, seem to just sort of spiral out of control. So I did a podcast with some women in the business, again, basically sharing their experiences of, what they use, patches, gels, etc. The fact that absolute rubbish.
Yeah. I can say I used the patches, and they are rubbish. They just fall off. You put them on, so they can fall off anyone.
You've always got that sticky mark as well, haven't you? Feet's just covered with sticky marks everywhere. They're everywhere.
Well, you'd wake up in bed and you'd find one at the bottom of the bed, and like a few days, I think that's where it went to.
Yeah. No, I listened to a really, really good podcast over the last couple of days called Menopause Whilst Black, by a lady called Karen Arthur. It's absolutely amazing, and it was what she found during her research was there was just so little for specifically black women going through the menopause, and that she said it feels from a minority group perspective that the material's very much aimed at sort of white middle class women going through it, and that's the baseline audience, when obviously it's not anymore. There's such a a wider variety of people going through it, and it was absolutely amazing, and is really well worth a look at. I mean, I had a good chat to one of my good friends who's Asian as well, that they're not at that stage going through it, but I was speaking to her about the stigma element from an Asian perspective, and she says, oh yeah, she said it's very real. She goes, it's not taught to us at all. She said that they are encouraged to have children earlier, because there's the myth that this is all going to happen really quickly and then you're not going to be able to have kids anymore. So she said, yeah, there's a real, she felt it as well, and she's only early 40s. This is the pressure to have children younger, because this is the stigma of, like, by 40 you're over the hill and you won't be able to have kids. So it was yeah, it's a really interesting one from the, you know, the interraciality perspective as well. Just moving on to sort of a bit more about, I guess, stigmas and language. So, you know, it's the change. What other terms have you guys come across?
I think change is probably, I remember my mum saying that, I'm going through the change. Well, what's the change? You know, I mean, what was it? What would you, I don't know if anyone, I think the only thing I really hear is menopause now. That's the word that I hear that is used. You don't really hear the change, do you?
No, it's been, now that it's sort of, yeah, like you say, we were speaking earlier, saying that, you know, the work that Davina McCall has done, bringing it to the forefront and putting it on national television, in that now menopause is an accepted word and it doesn't need to be disguised as something else. So, yeah, it is at least something that you can mention in conversation now without getting a funny look. Well,
Yeah.
all the time.
A lot of people come into meetings saying that they've got old lady brain, and I have to correct them to say that's not. No, you can own it. You can own the fact, you know, if you're happy to say it, then that's, you know, if you're happy to say old lady brain, then you should be comfortable to front it and, you know, again, educate other people. So
Yeah,
I think it's discussed in schools now. I think it was brought into schools last year. I think they brought it in last year before. I think.
Yeah, my daughter had it in sex ed at the end of last year, and we had a very open discussion about it. And yeah, it was end of year 5, and it was so, what's it all about? She seemed sort of, in medical terms, seemed to know quite a lot. I said, yeah, and this is what happens, and you know, we all go through it, and but that some of the symptoms can be this and this, and so it's very top line, but I think it's good that they understand it to begin with.
absolutely. I was listening to so Louise Newson is the menopause expert. She has her own clinic, Newson Clinic, and she does a series of podcasts. And I was laughing because we've got 2 kids and we're very open about hormones, menopause, periods. They know it all. Bless them, a boy and a girl. And on one of the podcasts, Louise was saying that obviously, you know, her job is menopause. Every day she's talking about it, she's researching it, everything. And she had said to her child, you know, obviously what mummy was doing at work today, blah, blah, blah. And apparently her little girl came home from school and said, Mum, I think my year 3 teacher is menopausal because she always stands by the door and she has to fan herself a lot. And then it was almost like her daughter was then diagnosing other mums in the playground who were displaying menopausal symptoms. So again, it's being, you know, we should be open with our kids. And again, they should be learning it as part of their education. They learn about hormones. My son's learning all about his horrendous preteen hormones at the minute. But again, we always describe it, the fact that he's just starting that hormone fluctuation and female wife is at the other end of that fluctuation. So for us, it's a nice story at home at the minute.
Yeah,
that's a good point though, isn't it? You know, when does that sort of start to come into discussions? Because my kids are quite young. I didn't have my lad until I was 43, so that my kids are only 5 and 7. So you know, when does that discussion, you know, mummy's starting to experience all these symptoms, do you tell them straight off that it's menopause? Because, you know, that is something that's going to be discussed. They're going to learn about it at school. You know, it may not be something that their friends are discussing because the other mums are 10 years younger than me. But, you know, get it out there.
Yeah, my 7-year-old, so daughter, 7-year-old, she knows all about it and she could tell you everything. But equally, if I'm having a really bad month with my period pains, she's the first one to go and get a Wheatie bag and put it in the microwave. She's an angel. So again, it's teaching her very young, again, that at some point she'll be going through, you know, periods, and at some point again she will be menopausal. So it's just arming her so that she knows, because I felt really naive. I felt quite stupid actually, the fact that I knew nothing about it at all. So yeah, it's about, you know, we need to be open.
But I think it's that's until you actually know somebody or you're going through it yourself, you wouldn't do. Let's be honest. Would you probably wouldn't do? But if you make that accessible and you get that out there before you get in that position where I have to find something out, just make it accessible to everybody. I think that's what it is. I
think you're right, because again, if you know the symptoms, so you know, a couple of examples I've got. So Fee had her digestive system went absolutely nuts, and I was convinced she had bowel cancer. You know, and I'm not a hypochondriac at all, but I was like, right, we need to get to the GP, you need to get tested. She didn't have bowel cancer. Then she was having kaleidoscope migraines, you know, when you get all the colours in your corner of your eyes. I was like, that's it, it's a brain tumour, she's got a brain tumour, we need to get to the doctors. So I marched dropped it again down. Again, she's never, you know, she runs marathons as well. Sheila, you know, she's done another marathon. So she's very, very fit. But again, we had to get tested for that. we've got a friend who thought she had early onset dementia because she would leave the house every day with the front door wide open, and her neighbour would ring her every day and say the front door is open again, you know. So she got tested for early onset dementia. Like, how terrifying. But if someone had said to you, you know, earlier on, you know, at school and then, you know, throughout your earlier years, you know, these are the things you should look out for. And if things aren't starting to, you know, track these symptoms and then go and get some support from the GP, you know, there'd be so much less worry about bowel cancer, brain tumours and dementia. So
I think that's a challenge, because some of the symptoms are so akin with others, or associated with others, you don't automatically think of it as the menopause. I think you're absolutely right. It does depend if you've, because I've got my best friend's going through it quite badly, you know, relatively early, and she'll go, oh, this is, you know, this is what I'm going through and these are the symptoms, and you're just like, wow, I just didn't associate that necessarily with the menopause. And she's like, this is how bad it's got. And then there's, you know, because there's so much, there's the weight gain, there's the, you know, the anxiety piece, there's so many little things that you just wouldn't associate necessarily, like the digestive stuff. It's just, you made me think about that with the whole early onset dementia thing. With this brain fog, I've just been like, just lose like mid-sentence, and I'm just, it is making me think, oh, could it be, yeah, could it be good? Am I just getting confusing COVID with actually, it could be the beginning of it. I don't know.
That's gone through
You just
my
don't know,
head,
do you?
with
No,
the
you're
brain
right.
fog. We've had, you know, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, you know, and it does go through your head. You sit there and you think, is it? You know, and you doubt yourself so much, I think, you know, when you start to get symptoms, you know, that the doubts will start running through your head, you know, because now that it's been a bit more brought out into the open, you know, you do have it as an option to think about. But there's still, like you say, am I not losing my marbles, but yeah, is it dementia? You know, is it something else? So yeah, it's going to put so many different ideas in your head because it's such a wide ranging, so many wide symptoms.
Yeah. So just sort of examples of some sort of, obviously you talked about a couple of initiatives already, Kat, but sort of for all of you, what sort of good initiatives even are taking place within your workplaces in terms of supporting the menopause or any kind of hormonal change?
We've got the menopause policy, which was now, we're trying to get that globally, so we're all in the same stage. And the webinar went down so well. It really did. I think there was a little bit, people got a bit embarrassed when sex came into it. The word was mentioned, and then you could probably think like, but you know, they were just talking about symptoms and various other things. I think that's it really. I think it's getting that education out there, talking about it, and obviously though, you don't want to be pushing things down people's throats as much. You don't want to be doing that, so you have to have the balance of it's there if you really want to. We will find it, and having support, and also having someone that perhaps people can go and talk to, and confidentially, you know, that you can go and speak and say without being fear of being judged, or you know, you're over the hill, whatever, you know. There's, I think it's being judged is a big thing, and it's being confidential that you can speak to somebody.
Really good point. What about you, Sam, in terms of sort of Pareto?
Yeah, it's just a question of you know, starting to get that information out there. I know Pareto is starting to write, you know, pieces about it to get out into the business, to get that education out there, you know, and running sort of like mini sort of internal podcasts that people can, you know, log into and listen to if they want to. And yeah, just getting the information out there, I think, is so hugely important. And like Sheila says, you don't have to force it down people's throat. I think enough people, as we've all said, are affected by it now that actually they'd be really interested to find out a little bit more, you know, and how they can help their colleagues and how they can help even family members. So yeah.
Yeah, so something I thought, I was looking at a couple of policies online. What I was surprised to look at was Channel 4's menopause policy was the first media company policy, and that wasn't until 2019. I was quite surprised by that. I don't know why. It's obviously BBC, etc., just haven't had any kind of sort of, you know, formal guidelines or policy. But I thought the which one was it? It was the co-op one, which I thought was really interesting, because they term it as it's a policy with guidelines as well. It wasn't just, you know, it's it's not being forced on you, you know, because everyone wants to. Again, it comes back to the one size fits all. It doesn't. So it's sort of, you know, you can pick and choose and sort of use it as you want. But they were talking about sort of impacting on sort of trans non-binary colleagues. It's about supporting all colleagues. But they had a really good menopause guide for managers, which you could download and look at. So do you think that's something that could be useful in terms of rolling out in terms of a training and development, learning and development need as well?
We've got that as well. We've got a guideline for for managers, how you can help and where we can support employees that if they are going through the menopause, this is what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, we did the same as well. So we did the policy and the guideline at the same time. So again, the policy is there for, as a document, as a sort of a, yes, okay, we've got something, but actually it's not very user friendly.
Yeah.
So we decided again, we'd do the same thing. So ours is in a table format, just gives you a bit of an idea. So again, if people are struggling with this, then this is the sort of easy alteration that you can make. And then you can have that sort of further conversation with HR if needed or the wider team. But the other thing that we did, so again, we did a series of podcasts, which are so easy to do. Again, I mentioned the one about Black women. We did one with senior males in the business as well, so that other people could hear men talking about menopause and their, experiences as well. And then the other thing we did was awareness sessions, so which we linked in with some of our clients with as well. Right. Again, it's high on everyone's agenda at the minute, so we said, we're doing this. If you want to join, feel free to. And what was quite nice was we did it over the lunchtime period on a Friday, so sort of wind up the week. Yeah. So drop in if you want to. And I had some feedback from one guy who was from a minority group, and he said that his wife walked into the room. What are you listening to on a Friday lunchtime? And he said, I'm just on a call about the menopause. And then she went, I'm not ready to talk about this with you yet. And then she walked back out again. So he was educating himself in something that would not be discussed in his culture at all, so that he had an understanding for work and for home. And she came in and she went, no, not ready about this. And then off she went. So that was great. Again, sort of as that sort of drop in, just to top everyone up in terms of their awareness.
Yeah,
that's good.
No, I think it's a really good point. And so I mean, essentially what we're saying, it's about education. It's about feeling, I guess, empowered and not embarrassed, about being able to go and speak to somebody. And because it is sometimes you think you go, oh my goodness, could I really have this discussion with my immediate line manager? Some people absolutely can, some people can't. So I guess it's finding that. We've got really great mental health first aiders at work. They have sessions on a Friday, but they've got very much open door policy, all confidential, all respected, and not judged. I think that's the important thing as well, is the not being judged element, and feeling that you'll be taken seriously as well.
Yeah, I think just knowing that your company has a policy and guidelines in place, just knowing that it has been discussed at higher levels and it is something that's being considered within the company, that's a good step forward. Absolutely. Even for people that might not be ready to come forward and say, yes, I'm experiencing this, or yes, I need help. Just knowing that is a something to at least set people's minds at rest, if nothing else.
Yeah, we found it sort of a bit of a snowball effect, actually. So we've been tackling the menopause taboo issue for the last 18 months, and now people are saying, well, what's the next thing we're going to talk about then? So now we're doing a big thing on male suicide, we're doing prostate cancer. So it's we're now that they can see it's a safe space for menopause, it's like, right, okay, now what do we need to tackle as well? So ours is just snowballed into everyone being very open and very empathetic and just wanting to know more and more and more. So
we have with our business, we have, well, it was D&I, we've got 5 groups, and so obviously menopause comes into ages, and we've talked about, and we've had speakers in about male suicides, and various mental health. I mean, we had a discussion on ADHD. We had people talking about ADHD. It was fantastic. It was just so good. It just opened up that subject, and again, it's just. It's various. I think once you discuss something, isn't it? It is a snowball effect, and it just opens it up for so much more.
But everything you've said is a really good point, and I guess it also leads to an element of retention, because if, as a person going through this, you feel that you're valued, that you're listened to, that you'll be taken seriously, I guess it will engender that loyalty, won't it? and it'll make you think, right, well, I actually feel quite cared for and supported through this, so I won't have the need to, if they are taking into account maybe part-time working requests or flexible working requests, it'll make you feel less anxious, and actually I am being supported, so I won't need to get either quit altogether or look for another job who will be a bit, a place that'll be a bit more flexible.
You're exactly right. It's that retention piece, isn't it? I know. So again, I've got friends, and I know someone in the business who phoned me actually, 6 months ago and said, "That's it. I'm handing my notice in. I've got no job to go to, but I can't do this anymore. Like, too much. I'm not performing, etc., etc." And I let her talk. And even as a woman talking to a woman, I said, I can hear what you're saying. Have you considered that this may be hormone related, and maybe it is that you're menopausal, perimenopausal, and that's what's causing this, quick decision to just leave the business with no job? And it went really quiet, and I was like, oh no. So again, difficult me having a conversation with another woman about hormones and menstruation, menopause. And we sort of left the call. I checked in with her a couple of days later, and she'd gone to the GP, and she got herself straight onto HRT. So
wow.
So if I hadn't had that conversation and she didn't feel open to have the conversation with me that she was struggling from a mental health point of view, we would have lost a very significant talent from the business. So again, it's making sure that people are aware that it comes across as it's mental health, isn't it? It does affect your mental health. You're tanking your confidence. All of a sudden you've gone from being a high flyer, watch this, watch me go, to this challenge of the hormones causing havoc on your professional career, to where I can't perform anymore, so I need to leave. Absolutely no way.
You almost feel like you're starting again sometimes. You almost feel like you're back to the beginning. It's like I can't do my job anymore. I need to be taught how to do things all over again. So it's really scary to go through, I think.
And I've been up a lot. I go on a lot about age. I really do, because I sort of like, it's that thing. I've lost my voice. I've lost my voice. I'm over 50. I'm not really treated. So I would have to, sometimes I feel that I have to scream and shout. I would have to be listened, because I'm 50. They probably think I'm menopausal, even though I've gone past. But we've got enough things against us as it is, having to get our voice across without having to feel that with the menopause or it just, see, I've just lost it then and all. I've just lost what I was saying mid-sentence. I'm so sorry.
These things happen.
No, absolutely. That's what we're here to talk about. That's the whole point of it. And like I said, it's happening to me all the time at the moment. And in my job, where connections and remembering people's names is absolutely key, it's a bit of a nightmare. But I've been very open with my boss. I've said, look, I'm struggling with names at the moment, and I really don't know why. And he's like, Codley, you're so, I am on, he goes, you're on it. He goes, you remember people from 10 years ago who you dealt, and you'll remember exactly when you dealt with them and why and what the outcome was. And I was like, I know. And it's just one of those things. So I'm making lists, and it is a self-doubt, and it is the
self-doubt that it brings in, and you doubt it. It starts to germinate, and you doubt things, like I can't remember people's names, I can't remember other things, and it spreads, and you doubt your ability to do your job in its entirety. You doubt people's faith in you, it generates all those thoughts in your head, that are like, God, they must think I'm losing my marbles, I can't do my job anymore. And that huge sense of insecurity that it does generate, I think, is also one of the things that people really need to understand. That whole imposter syndrome, it takes on a whole nother level, when you're dealing with that. I struggle enough within the day-to-day thinking, gosh, one of these days someone's going to come along and say, right, we've realized you're not a real grown-up, out you go. And it just makes it 10 times worse.
It's like shopping. I go shop. I'm terrible. I could go shopping. I know what I'm going to go to the shops, come back, and I think, I forgot that. I've gone back out to the shops to go and get what I've forgotten. I've forgotten what I've had to get. And I think, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm really not doing this.
It's not a list. I can't even leave the house without a list.
No. Or on my phone. I've just got and my phone is like constant pings every hour or so, reminding me to do the pickup, or I had to do it at 11:30 last night.
I have a reminder in my calendar to pick my kids up from school. Mother of the year.
It's fine. I think as long as everyone, you can laugh about it and,
Yeah.
and support each other and joke about it. That's why I think Davina McCall's done such an amazing job of raising awareness. And I'll have friends that message me now because we're talking about it within different friendship groups. They'll go, oh, you've got to watch that. Or like this, Louise Newson, I will absolutely be messaging people tonight going, you need to look at the, you know, I will.
Download the app.
And
I say the app's fantastic. The fact you can then track on a daily basis, you know, exactly bespoke what's affecting you. And again, from a partner point of view as well, I'd highly recommend filling it in with your partner next to you, because I could then go, right, okay, I can see you're a 2 out of 10 in terms of your anxiety. You know, I need to make sure that I'm a bit more supportive, another cup of tea, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it allows me to have that insight into how she's feeling too. So
yeah, and that's a really good point, because your partner might see things that you're not. You think you're functioning at a certain level, and they'll be like, no.
And you're exactly right. You said something earlier about, again, you almost don't want to chew your partner's ear off of, you know, oh, she's talking about the menopause again. You know, I'm like that. Tell me exactly how you're feeling. Tell me what I can do. Tell me more. Tell me, you know, are you feeling this? Are you feeling this? I'm so annoying. Cold feet. I found out it's one of the symptoms. I'm like, your feet cold. That's because of the menopause.
That's amazing.
Crazy.
No, that's very, very impressive. Well, is there anything else you want to add? I think we've covered an awful lot in the last sort of 50 minutes or so. Yeah. It's been lovely to speak to you all. Thank you so much for your input. Really appreciate it.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Lovely to meet you all.
Lovely to meet you.
See you later. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Bye.